Hello friends, welcome to Coding Garden with CJ. Look at all these wonderful drops. We're back to the old drop game. We're back to the leaderboard here. And today is a Q&A session. So we're just going to hang out, try to answer your questions. We'll try to write some code. It's going to be a good time. And congrats to Tan Vu, who's on the top of the leaderboard with an 82.98, and Pranjal in second with an 81.93. Welcome, everyone. We're definitely going to have to disable the drop game at some point because it is very busy. But we have this beautiful garden going already. So let's say hello to all the people in the chat. Hello, Valter. Welcome to the stream. Hello, Tan. Hello, Jimmy. Good morning, Ed. Thanks, Jimmy. Hello, Mattia. Hello, Mahidra. Hello, Tipsy Ninja. Hello, Julian. Good morning, Jean. Good morning, Gabriel. Hello, Pranjal. Hello, Isaacs. Welcome. We're going to answer questions. Yeah, and Pranjal, your question's at the top of the list, so we'll try to attack that one first. We won't attack it. We will answer it gracefully. But yeah, so if anyone else has questions, please ask your questions at qna.coding.garden. If you ask a question in the chat, I'm going to ignore it, mainly because it's hard to manage. So if you have a question, add it there. I will literally skip your question in the chat if you ask the question in the chat. If you have a question, ask it there. I said it. That's how we're gonna do it. This should work. Why isn't this working? Feels bad, man. I'm pretty good, Alka. Let's catch up on everyone. And yeah, Alka got like an 8 on the leaderboard to begin with. All right, you got me, Region. I'll probably answer that one. Yes. New processor dialed in. Nice, very good. Oh yeah, the drop command is for playing the drop game. I'll answer your questions like, hi, how are you? But like code-related questions, they have to be on the website. Make sure you're not muted, El Trendo. I think everyone else can hear me. Hello, Khalil, welcome. Hello, Ed, welcome. Hello, Isaacs. Hello, Daniel Garden. Hello, Marco. Hello, Stefan. Hello, Tipsy Ninja. I might review some Seedling School projects today, but I am only going to be live for about an hour and a half. So at 9:30 my time, I got to go. So we're going to try to answer as many questions as possible, potentially do Seedling School tomorrow. I know I keep saying we're going to do it the next day, but I'm busy. I got things to do. Hello, Rand. Welcome. Hello, Alka. Hello, Mujdat. Welcome. Happy New Year, El Trendo. I think it's been a while since we've seen you in the chat, but welcome. Hello, Ashwin. Good evening. Hello again, Isaacs. Hello, Schmucky. Welcome. And again, go to qna.coding.garden if you have questions, and I will try to answer them. I'll do my best. Is this a better Twitch TV emote? I feel like that should work. Thank you, Alka. I don't know. Maybe. Is it spelled wrong? I don't know. Hello, Alka. I'm doing good. I'm not gonna ignore questions like that. And I am doing good. I got plenty of sleep last night. I shaved my face this morning. I'm feeling great. Today is a good day. Yeah. What is your name? My name is CJ. Hello, yes sir. Good morning, Majestic Eye. Welcome. Hello, Jan from Slovakia. Welcome. Premjit. Hello. Hello, Ben Arendamer. I'm doing pretty good today. Good morning. Yeah, are these, let me know, Alka, are these global, better Twitch TV emotes? I might need to look into that code. You were holding up 3 fingers, Alka. Hello, Emmanuel, welcome. Oh, it's afternoon for Deep Sense. Hello, hello, welcome. Wrong 4. Okay, well, I did my best. All right, can someone do a better Twitch TV emote? I feel like, do I have that? Wow. So it stopped working? What's up with that? All right. I'm going to get the emotes working. And then we're going to answer some questions. All right, let's get the emotes working. We got to get the emotes working, right? Let me hide my screen for just a second. And thanks, Cedric, for the super chat. Looking clean. Much appreciated. Actually, I don't know. Did I like revert a commit or something like that? Yeah, much appreciated, Cedric. We're just getting started, but I thank you very much. Excuse me. All right. And thanks for the follow, our Regent, RGNT. No worries, no worries at all. Okay. BTTV emotes. Yeah, we're logging the BTTV emotes and the BTTV regex. Argent. Ah, that makes sense. I said Regent. I've been watching Game of Thrones, so there's like Queen Regent, who's a horrible person if you watch Game of Thrones. Horrible, horrible. Oh, this morning I'm drinking yerba mate. It's tea in a can, but I like it. And anyone else, what are you drinking? Drinking coffee, water, tea? Let me know. Okay, bttv json.4h is not a function. Right. Let's see what happens if their API is down. Ah, they have changed their API. I'll show you just a second. But yeah, they changed their API. Should be an easy fix though. Oh yeah, Majestic Guy with the Mountain Dew, of course. But so last time we called their API, it was just an array. We got back an array of data, but now it has two properties: URL template and emotes. That's different from last time. Right? Well, no, I swear last time we literally get back an array that we just iterate over. I swear. That's fine though. We just gotta do this. Am I running NodeMon on the back end? Yes. There we go. All right. Try your better Twitch TV emotes. There we go. It works. Just a second. Wait. Okay. Phil's Batman. I don't know if that's a global Twitch, a better Twitch TV emote. All right, we're back. We got better Twitch TV emotes. We can we can continue doing what we were doing. Hey, look at that. Cool. Let's see if anyone else said hello. Hello, me like 2D. Welcome. Hello, Ariel. Welcome. Hello, Sean. Welcome. There might have been some other hellos. Let's see. Emmanuel, hello. If I didn't say hello. Hello, Abdelhamid. Welcome. It keeps buffering? That's unfortunate. I'm not getting any dropped frames, so that's your problem. No, I'm just kidding. Hello, Lawrence. I'm doing pretty good. All right, first question of the day. And Happy New Year, Greg. Thanks for dropping by. No, I'm good. I've just been trying to take a break. I actually was a little burnt out. It was definitely time for me to not stream every single day, but I'm back. And I'm pretty sassy this morning, which is interesting. I don't know. Hello, Shaggy. Welcome. Hello, Sam. All right, first question comes from Pranjal. who says, how to use the built-in INTL API for doing date manipulation. Please explain with a few code examples. We can absolutely do that. Let's do this. Let's write some code. We're gonna go into the morning tea directory. We're gonna make a directory for today, which is 2020. There we are, 2020 0104. Not SOS. Okay, that makes sense. Oh, nice. Yeah, so Alka streamed for like the entire month of December, which was pretty fun. So it's gonna be getting back into it. The INTL API, and we'll do this in the browser because I know for sure that Chrome supports a lot of it. Cool. Do a basic HTML document, and then we'll bring in that JavaScript file so we can show some examples. All right. Let's start this up. No. Nice. Where's that gonna go? Where's it gonna land? Yes, in the beautiful, beautiful coding garden forest. All right, start this up. All right, really, we're just gonna show the Chrome DevTools because, I mean, I guess we could like render things to the page, but the question is how to use the built-in INTL API. So if you haven't heard of it, in the browser, there's this thing called INTL, and it is a specification within ECMAScript for creating and doing internationalization in the browser. So internationalization, also known as I18in, internationalization and localization, is making your website work in multiple different languages. And we're going to disable the drop game after these land. Oh, thank you, ATD. Much appreciated. Okay, drop game away for now. But yes, so if you've ever gone to a website and it appears in your language, then they might be doing, well, they're definitely doing internationalization, but they might be using the INTL API. So that's a thing, and there's a lot of different properties and methods built into it. So this date time format, I believe, is the one that Pranjal is asking about. So we can show some examples with that. And then there's relative time format, which I looked into and was potentially using for isitnewyearsday.com. The answer is no. It will be New Year's Day in 11 months, 27 days, 15 hours, 45 minutes, 23 seconds for me. It might be sooner for you. But the relative time format potentially could have done this right here. But I'll show you how it works. I think it only works like one thing at a time. Hey, there's more people. It only works with one unit at a time, so you can do relative time format with days or hours or minutes. Here, let me change the emoji. There we go. No, the can is not the new drop game. This is my my tea for the morning. And hello, Toby. Welcome. Hey, there's more people. Cool. So that's fun. But doing things like this, 11 minutes, 27 days, 15 hours, 44 minutes, potentially you could use INTL date time format. Well, not that one, but really relative time format, which can do things like 1 day ago, pasado mañana, and built into the browser without any extra libraries. Oh, look at all the people and all the fireworks. And on this website, we actually just did it from scratch. So if I turn this into German, we actually just wrote some JavaScript functions that detect the locale, and we customized and custom formatted this, mainly because, okay, I'm going to close this now, but that was fun. But mainly because the INTL relative time format is not supported in all browsers yet. If you look on here, you can see that Edge doesn't support it, IE, it doesn't work in Safari, so like mobile devices, Safari OS, it doesn't work. So if you did want to use this, you would need a polyfill, which actually adds quite a bit of code to your payload. Regardless, let's test out some of these methods. So first, let's just do like INTL date time format. And we'll do that in the browser here. So we'll say today is a new date. And then if we look at this, we can say create a new intl date format and pass in your locale, or the language that you want to format it to. Say dot format and pass in the date. Now with English US and English Great Britain, these are actually different. So in the US, we usually put the month first, then the day, then the year. But in most other places in the world, they put the day, the month, and the year. And this will automatically do that for you. So let's see it. So we need to create an instance of the intl date time format, and you pass in the language. So English US is a standard one. And we can actually look up the list of language codes. Anyone in the chat, props, if you can tell me, I don't know what it is, but you might have to look it up. There's a specification that is the list of language locales. It's like ISO something. Let me know what it is if you find it out. So let's call this US formatter. Here we use freedom units like Fahrenheit, yeah. So you create an instance of the thing, and then you can see that after you have the instance, you have access to this format function. Now, in their example on MDN, they just do it all in one go. But now that I have this formatter, I can use it. So I can say, let's log US, thank you, Alka, US formatter dot format, and we'll pass in today. And this should just log the format in American in the United States English, which is month, day, and then year. But if we create a UK formatter, and we do English Great Britain, and then we log UK formatter dot format today, we're gonna get the day first and then the month, and you'll notice that it prefixes it with a leading 0, which is pretty interesting as well. But yeah, Alka has the ISO specification, so 639-1, 639-1, and these are the language codes. Well, so 639-1, I think I would assume came first, but it's really just like the abbreviation. So like EN is most likely English. Let's just search for English. Here we go, EN. But -2 recognizes that not all English-speaking countries do things the same way. So if we look at the specification -2, that is where they added the US or -GB. Let's see. Is it this one? Maybe it's another one. No, that's not it. There's another one. There's another specification. But basically, this is a list of all possible languages, and you can pass those in. And I believe it would support other things as well. So if I just do English, let's see what it defaults to. So I'm just going to pass in EN, not EN US. And it defaults to like English US probably because that's my locale. What if I pass in German? Ah! We actually get periods in the date. That's super interesting. So DE is Deutsch. What about Arabic? Wow. Is that really a thing? Does anyone in the chat speak Arabic? Would you format your date like this? Because this is like day, year / month. Very interesting. No, it's not real. Maybe it makes more sense if we're actually doing like a right to left. I think AR is the Arabic language. AR, yeah, Arabic. What is AS? AS is Indo-European. Well, no. Assamese? What do we get? We get month first. Yeah, the RTL most likely messed it up. Okay, cool. But it's interesting to note because I guess if you were formatting this with like a right to left formatter, then that would probably work. Day, month, year. Okay, let's take a quick stretch. But that's really the basics of the relative time formatter. And well, another thing to mention is you would want to get the user's locale. So instead of just passing in English US all the time, you would probably want to do this dynamically, so that when someone visits your site, you get their specific locale. And the most latest way to do that, I believe, is navigator.language or navigator.languages. And navigator.language, I believe, will just show the preferred language, and languages will show you all languages that they have enabled in the browser. That said, not all browsers support this. So if we look at on MDN at navigator language, implemented by navigator.language. So navigator.language, read-only property. We can look at the browser support. This one actually looks like it has pretty good support across the board for at least the latest version of all the browsers. And then languages is the more experimental one, and that looks like it has pretty good support too. But there are other browsers that don't support it. I can show you what I did for the isitnewyearsday.com website. And I actually got that from an npm library that does a little bit more, but I'll show it really quick. So let's look at components and then countdown. So this right here, so navigator.languages, if that exists, I just grabbed the first one. If navigator.language doesn't exist because it is experimental, I use navigator.language. There's also navigator.userlanguage, navigator.browserlanguage, and navigator.systemlanguage, and it really depends on what browser you're running in. IETF BCP 47. Let's look it up. That's not it. But see you later, Impy. Thanks for hanging out with us while you did. My New Year's site doesn't work on IE. That's fine. I'm not worried about that. Is it Edge or is it IE 11? Let me know. I did my best. I did my best to support what I could. And thanks for the follow, Mr. Ziclow, Internet Explorer 11. Is that what it is? I don't know. But what I wanted to show is in that code right here, there actually is this GitHub. Well, it's a project that's on npm that's called Get User Locale, and it does what I was doing right there. Never use it. Okay. But this provides a function called Get User Locale, and it does all of those fallbacks for you. So probably if you're trying to get a user's locale, you would want to use a library like this or write it on your own. But that's something to look at as well. So let's do this. We are going to we're gonna just do navigator.language. This is decent support, and it is the it's supported in Chrome, and it should be the default language set in the browser. So let's call this date formatter. Locale. Let's see. Accept language. Wait, am I about to be rickrolled? Let's see. Wait. I don't know. Doesn't matter. I don't care. Am I muted? It's not a rickroll. Okay. Is it a redirect? Hello, Static. Welcome. Yeah, so Alka has a good point. So there's a way of if you're doing JavaScript to this stuff, you should use something like navigator.language. But if you're doing internationalization on the back end and you're doing potentially like server-side rendering, the browser sends an accept language. So actually, we can take a look at that. If we look at the network headers whenever this request is sent, so let's refresh it. we can see that in my request header, so my browser, as a part of the request, sent the accept language. So their backend now knows that I have my default language set to English US. Yeah. So that's a good point, Alka. Basically, there's more than just the browser. The HTTP accept language header can help with that as well. Very good. All right, here's what I want to do though. Let's like actually just deploy this really quick, and we can see if it works for other people's locales. So if I do dateformer.format today, and let's put this right here, we get that. Let's actually just put it in the DOM. Let's create a little div. Info, date info. Oh, look at that. James is da, which is, I believe, Danish in Denmark. Let's see what we get if we pass that in instead of navigator.language. We'll pass in da dk. They use the dots. That's pretty cool. I like that. They use the dots. Okay, so and let's actually use some more APIs. So now we're getting the language from navigator.language, and we're formatting the date, but let's look at these other APIs as well. And so there's date format, there's relative time format. Yeah, and that's another good point, Alka. So if you go into your Chrome settings languages, you can set your default language or add more languages. So I have mine is English, United States. Whenever I did the stream where I was learning Spanish, you can go to add languages, but I added just the regular Espanol, not any particular country. And then I moved that one all the way to the top, so it became, and actually let's do this. So if I add this, and I move it to the top, and we request that API again that's looking at the headers, hey, now it shows that I have Espanol, but also English. And thanks for the follow, Edestes and ASAP Freddy. Welcome to the show. We're talking about the internationalization API. All right, let me undo that because then everything's going to be in Spanish. Cool. All right, let's do a relative time format as well. Spanish, Danish, German, Italian, Lithuanian, US. Yeah, so, and that's because you have those languages enabled in your browser, which is pretty cool. All right, let's create, so we have a date formatter. And let's just put this in the DOM so we can actually see it. We're not going to console log it anymore. So we'll call this date info. Document.query. Query selector for the thing with ID date info. And then we're just going to set its inner HTML. So down here we'll say date info.inner HTML. It's a nice little string that will have like a paragraph tag. We'll say today's date. Oh, well, now that I think about it, we should probably translate today's date. Regardless, we're going to put the date formatter.format today right there. Like so. So that's fine. Let's add some basic styles. And it should say today's date, 1/4/2020, because I'm in the US and that's how we format our dates. Let's also do a relative time format. Let's see. So we're going to create a relative time format function. Relative formatter. And here we pass in the locale as well. So I'll just do navigator.language. And for style, you can do narrow. What other options do we have? Let's do long. And then let's just display how many days since New Year's Day. Or how many days until New Year's Day. Let's do that. Thanks for the follow, Oddball, and thanks for the follow Ledro Lika. Yeah, Shaggy wants us to convert it to translate to Klingon. I wonder if there's a navigator language for Klingon. That'd be pretty funny. So they potentially personalize content for users based on their locale. So if they need to translate it, they could use that navigator language. The browser can also do it as well. But yeah. Okay, so we have today's date. Let's do a relative time formatter. And the way this works is we say relative time formatter.format, pass in the number of days, or the unit, and then what day, well, what unit you're passing in. So the valid values for unit. Let's look at the format function. I think that will have it. Yeah, prototype.format. So this can be year, quarter, month, week, day, hour, minute, second. So let's do this. Let's create a variable that holds the number of days until New Year's. So that's going to be a new date in the future. So we're going to want 2021. The month is 0 because it's 0 indexed, and the day is 1. And so we'll subtract today. And then we need to, so this is going to give us milliseconds. So if we divide by 1,000, that's going to give us seconds. And if we divide by 60, that's going to give us minutes. And if we divide by 60 again, that's going to give us hours. And if we divide by 24, that should give us days. Right? I don't know. But let's try it. So now we're going to use the relative time formatter. And then we'll just add another p tag that says days till New Year's. I don't want to use any external libraries. I'm really just demonstrating the internationalization API. So we'll say relative time formatter dot format. We'll pass in the number of days till New Year's Day. And then we'll tell it that we want to show the number of days. And actually, we should. And actually, I think it works with day, days, etc. So, days till New Year's, in 362.643 days. It's pretty good. We could also potentially pass in. If we didn't do days, we could do hours. And this relative time formatter will say in some given hours. However, if we give it a different locale, so let's just do this. Locale equals navigator.language. So that way we can override it. So if we set the locale to be German, DE, let's see what we get. In 8.703, 413 Stunden. What if we do Danish? Is it the same in Danish? What if we do in Espanol? Dentro de horas. Cool. So let's see if what is Intl? Oh, the Netherlands? What language is that, though? Ah. And let's also do this. We're gonna add the detected locale. So obviously right now I'm hard coding it to Intl. Dutch, cool. Tour. Let's go back to days. Let's take a quick break. It should be timer in Danish. Well, actually, if we do days with Danish, timer is days, and then, no. Timer is minutes. There's a million. And well, let's do days. Okay. Thanks for the follow, Turnshoe. Did we try DK? Well, actually, I'm gonna try Zoo. Yeah, so here's the unfortunate thing. If it doesn't recognize that language, then it's just gonna show it in English, which is unfortunate, because I think Zoo is your language, right, Cananello? You potentially could add like a locale file that translates these things, but if it's not built into the browser, then it won't translate it. Okay, timer is hours. Hello, Marquez. Things are good. Cool. Yeah, I guess I switched it from days to hours, so I think it's right. All right, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna deploy this, and you can, if you go to the website, you can actually see what it displays for you. And then I'll link to the internationalization API, because there's a lot of other things as well. So plural rules is pretty cool, because this will automatically pluralize things for you based on the locale. But let's just share this. So there's that. Awesome, and then let's deploy it. And thanks for the follow, T from Ike, or T from Ike? T from Mike? Yeah, I've made like basic games. But no, nothing serious. Like, let's turn the drop game on, because we're pretty much done with this topic. So this game, where people can type drop in the chat, and it drops down, that's a game. I made that. Afro mic? The Afro mic. I like it. That makes sense. All right, let's update this now config. Honestly, I don't need a build. It'll just make it static. Okay. The Afro mic. Nice. All right, so if you go to this URL, it should detect your preferred browser locale. It'll show you the date formatted, and it'll say days till New Year's. So go to this website now, and should work for you. All right, so that was fun. That was a great question, Pranjal. Thanks for asking it. Harvesting data. No, I'm not. It's a static website. There's no scripts. Come on. Look at it. Nothing. You can inspect it. The JavaScript literally just does this. Yeah, it should use. Well, Ashish, it could be that is your default language set in the browser. One thing I could do is I could tap into navigator.languages and allow you to select it. Come on. You all know a little bit of JavaScript here. You can look at the source of the page and know that I'm not harvesting your data. Oh, there we go. So Shaggy is in Australia. They show it as day, month, year, and it's tomorrow in Australia. And New Year's Day is in 361.93 days. SR. Ooh, very cool. So is that Cyrillic? Russia. Is that a thing? It's not a Rickroll, come on. Oh, it's Serbia, sorry. And is that correct? Is it Cyrillic, Skrillex. What's the SR stand for? um, this is JavaScript. So basically, we're writing code that runs inside of the web browser. And when you when you go to this website, your browser runs the code that I just wrote, this internationalization stuff. And so basically, all these things are built into the browser. So navigator.language will tell JavaScript what your preferred language is. Cyrillic? Skrillex. So navigator.language is in code in the browser that says what your preferred language is. Intl.datetime format is built into the browser to format it to your preference based on where you're from. Cyrillic. I think that's it. Thank you, programmer in progress. Cyrillic. Oh yeah, you all got it. Cyrillic. And then relative time format, you can pass in a number of days, hours, minutes, and it will actually translate it to be in their specific format. So that's what I was showing with this, and this is JavaScript. It runs in the browser. Good morning, Alan. Welcome. Let's see. So I think, Mahidra, you're watching right now. I can try to answer this question if you provide some more details. So Mahidra is saying, I use JSON server to make a fake API for my front end to get, post, and put. For authentication on the README, they say that they that use project as a module in combination with other Express middlewares, but I'm not able to do that. Can you explain it and show us how to add authentication to that? So I've used JSON server once before. It's actually pretty cool. It just instantly creates a JSON API and you give it a JSON file. Get a full fake REST API with 0 code in less than 30 seconds. So why not? Let's just install it locally and do it. So I think what Pranjal is asking is basically they want to use JSON server, but they want to add some authentication to it. And by default, you can run it as a global command, and it will just run that JSON file. See you later, Alka. Thanks for hanging out with us. Get some good rest. We'll see you later. And so you can say JSON server after you've installed it globally, and it will talk to that JSON file. But I believe you can also add it as a module directly to like some JavaScript code. So let's see. What are you doing, Ed? Are you trying to rickroll me? What's going on? I'll load it anyways. You're trying to load an Imager album? Ah, I see. Is that Latvian? If you right-click it, that will give you the direct image address instead of the album. Very cool. So, and I'm assuming that all of you are using like a modern browser like Chrome. Can I pronounce it? No, I don't know what these accents mean. Pek 362264 Dienyam? I don't know. Let's see. I see. Okay, so I think here's what I think Pranjal is sorry, not Pranjal, Mahidra is getting at. So just explain how to add authentication, because the README there is no example of that. So you'll notice in their example here, you can pass in -- middlewares, and you just create a JavaScript file. So in Express, a middleware is a way of modifying potentially the incoming request. So we could create a basic middleware that does that. The other thing is you can actually create a full-fledged, basically, Express app that uses it and then uses middlewares. Let's just show in the most basic form how you would do it with just specifying like a simple authentication middleware in a separate file. So let's do this. We're going to create our db.json. Oops. Yeah, so I'll explain exactly what a middleware is, Gagan. And middleware is like a huge concept when building APIs with Express. Like, if you understand middlewares, you can do anything, because pretty much everything in Express is middlewares. Let's do this. I don't want to install JSON server globally. So what I'll do is in JSON server, I'm going to install, oh, not that. Well, actually, it's not going to like that I'm installing a package with the same name as the folder. So let's do this. Let's move this to JSON server example. And then we're going to init it. Yeah. Has anyone ever gotten a 100? No, we've got a 99.98, but no one's ever gotten 100. And Cedric, congrats, at the top of the leaderboard with a 95.93. Shaggy in second with a 94.27. Great work, everyone. You're doing great things. All right, so we're gonna install, not that, stop it. We're gonna install JSON server. So, as we showed, JSON server is this cool little package that instantly creates an API based on a JSON file. So you don't really have to write any code. All you do is you create a file called db.json. You put your data in there. And now this server will basically give you a RESTful endpoint for listing posts, listing comments, listing profiles. So let's do it. Let's get rid of this internationalization stuff. And so now that we have JSON server as a dependency, I'm just going to add a start script that says JSON server -- watch db.json. I think we'll double check in the docs. Yeah, that's what we want. So I'm telling it that I want to create an API based on the data that is in this JSON file. That should do it. So let's try it. Okay, so it instantly creates these endpoints. So now if I go to /posts, that's the drop game. I need to tell it what port to run on because I have other things running on port 3000. Let me see if I can specify the port. Alternative port. Yeah, -- port. Here we go. The drop game is running on port 3000, which we just determined. So let's run this on port 9999. Here we go. So now if I go to 999/posts, we get maybe nine. Let's see really quick. Let's just try it. http:// localhost 9999. That port could be in use as well. Let's try a different port. I have a lot of things running. I know for sure that 4242. That's nothing's running there, so this should work. All right. What happens if I go here? Here we go. Okay, so by default we get like this landing page. If we go to /posts, we see an array of posts. If we go /comments, we see an array of comments. I could have. I think I have something running on port 1337. If you go to /profile, we see profile. So this is really cool. It's a nice little package. You show it a JSON file, and it instantly creates an API. Now, what Mahidra is asking is, how can we lock this down? Because by default, these are all like open endpoints. Watch what can happen. So I'm going to open up Postman. So that's a tool for sending requests to a server. And because this API is completely and totally open, you can just post things to it all day long. So one moment. All right, here we go. So here in Postman, we send to GET requests. We get back an array of posts. Well, let's create a new post. So we're going to do a post to /posts. The body is going to be JSON. And we're going to send... I wonder what happens if we leave off the ID. But let's say the title is Coding Garden. And the author is CJ. So if we send this post request, we get back, and it has an ID. And now if I make a GET request, now Coding Garden is a post on this post endpoint. And if we look back at the JSON file, we can see that that automatically got added. So yeah, I understand, Mahidra. I'm explaining for everyone else that has no idea what all of this is. So basically, we have an API. We can make post requests to it. Like Mahidra is mentioning, we can make delete requests too. So we could even just say, I want to delete the post with ID 1. So I'll do a delete request on post 1. That deletes it. Take a quick stretch. Hello, GamerCat Nico. I'm doing pretty good. We're just answering some questions. So now if I do a get, ID with post1 is totally gone. Cool. But you don't want, if you were to deploy this, you wouldn't want this to be open to the world. Honestly, though, I will say this is probably not a good solution for building like full-fledged applications that a lot of users are using, because it's not a real database. It's really just using this JSON file. Which is not the best thing in the world. But let's talk about middlewares and kind of explain what's happening in their docs here. So what they say is if you want to specify a middlewares like this, a middleware is a way for locking down specific routes. So let's just do this. We're going to create a middleware called auth. So in here, say new file, auth.js. And your middleware exports a request handler. So you can see we have module.exports, rec resin next. If you've ever built an Express API, that'll look very similar to you, or very familiar to you. And let's just see what this middleware does. So we can see that it takes in the request. This is the outgoing response, and then next is a function you can use to pass things on to the next middleware. And all this is doing is setting a header on the outgoing response. It's setting the x-hello header to be the value world, and then it's calling next, so it goes on to the next middleware. So now if we include this middleware, so we're going to say -- middlewares when we start our app, -- middlewares with auth.js, and then we'll restart it. So we'll start it up. And now, when I make requests with postman, we can look at the response headers here, and we can see that x-hello is set to world. So this middleware is able to change the outgoing response. So let's just do this. We're going to create a simple middleware that just disallows every single request. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to say res.status is 401, and we're just going to do next with an error that says unauthorized. And so what will happen is when an incoming request comes in, we're going to set the outgoing status to be 401. And instead of just calling next without a value, whenever you call next with a value, it's considered an error. And so instead of actually serving the response that was intended for this request, it'll just serve back this error. So now I have this. I'll restart the server, and if I try to request posts, let's look at the body. Access denied, error. You can see that it's actually responding with HTML, and that's just how JSON server does it. But you can see it says error, unauthorized. So I can't request anything. I can't even do like a delete. So delete post /1, error, unauthorized. I can't do anything. Basically, I've created a middleware that just blocks every single thing in the API. Yeah, so I'm working on a question that someone asked on the Q&A website. I've looked at it, and I haven't had a chance to try it. I think, yeah, now's a good time to try it. We can show it. Let's do it. So Postwoman is a browser-based request tool, very similar to Postman, but it's all in the browser. And we can make very similar requests. So if we put this same URL in here, let's do just a get on that URL, send it. Why can't I send it? Oh, I see. We want the path to be /posts, maybe? What did I do wrong? I can't click the get button. Let me know if I need to do something different. All right, so yeah, so now that we know sort of how middlewares work, so here's the other thing. Let's create a middleware that actually, instead of returning, so you can see now that when an error happens, it's actually returning this HTML. what we can do is we can register an error handling middleware that will respond with JSON instead. So let's just do this. We'll create a new file. We'll call it errorhandler.js. It's going to export a middleware. However, in Express, if you create a middleware that takes in 4 parameters, so error, rec, res, and next, this will be your error handler. And so basically, when someone calls next with an error, it's going to make it to this middleware so we can actually do something with it. So I'm going to say res.status. Res.status. We're going to set the status to be if res.status code is equal to 200, then we want to set it to 500, meaning this is some sort of server error. And then if not, then we'll set it to be res.status code, which was potentially set by a previous middleware. Yeah, I was. That should work because Postwoman is just running inside of the browser. Yeah, it's just running inside the browser, so it should try to make the request to my computer. Is it using a proxy? I don't think it is. Oh, here we go. That's why. But also, I can't click the send button. Why can't I click the send button? Okay, so we have this error handler. We're setting the status code, and then we're just going to do res.json. The message is going to be error.message. And we'll include the stack trace. Error.stack. So this includes all of the error stuff that happens. So now, if I include this middleware, it doesn't work with localhost. Well, that's silly. Does that mean it always is going through some sort of, oh, it's work in progress. Okay. Okay, so now I'm including the error handler middleware. We'll kill this, we'll restart it, and we'll request it. And apparently it didn't register my error handle middleware. Oh yeah, no, it did. So now, notice, because the, what do you call it? Because I registered that custom error handler, now we're actually getting back a JSON response. So my error handler kicked in, this one that I just wrote, and it's sending back JSON instead of HTML. So that's pretty great. All right, so now to the actual question that Mahidra was asking, how do we lock this thing down to use some sort of authentication? So now, instead of just always responding with 401 unauthorized, we just need some logic. We need to say, like, if username and password is valid, then we call next. Else, we return unauthorized. This is basically how authentication works. It's just a middleware. It makes sure that you're allowed to do this thing, or this is more of authorization because you're checking to see if the given request is authorized for this resource. So if username is and password is valid, we'll do this. And maybe it's not username and password if user token on request is valid. Something like that. Then we call next, which means you're allowed to make this request. We'll go on to the next handler. But if that's not the case, then we just return unauthorized. So I'm going to do some super simple authorization right here. So I'm just going to say if request.get simple auth, no, well, let's call this dumb auth, don't do this. Do this password. So we're going to get the header, dumb auth, don't do this password. And if that is equal to secret, we're going to allow it to happen. But if there was no header set called dumb auth, don't do this password, then we're going to return unauthorized. Okay, so let's restart my server. Now, by default, yeah, so if next contains anything, it goes to the error function. Absolutely. So if you could even pass in a string here. I don't recommend it. You should always pass in an error object because that's what it's expecting. But if you call it with a parameter, that goes to the error handler. If you call it with nothing, that goes on to the next request handler. Okay, so now if we request this, we should still get unauthorized because we're not passing the header, but here's what I'm going to do. Now in the request, I'm going to include the dumb auth don't do this password header, and we're going to include secret as the value. and click send, and now we actually get back a response. So this is really all an authorization middleware is doing. It's checking a header, it's checking a token, it's doing something and inspecting the request to see if it's actually authorized, and if it is, it will allow the request to happen. So that's what we did here. We checked to see if this header is set to the value secret, and if it is, we allow the request to come through. We could change this to be something else, and because it doesn't match secret, we're gonna get unauthorized. Cool. So that's like the basics of middleware. And I did see password one. I did see that Mahidra was mentioning you can also, instead of doing all these middleware files, you can do it in a single file. That's absolutely possible, and it would work in a very similar way. Now, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And thanks for the follow, Thiago Ramos. Welcome. Yeah, cool. But so there are better ways. Most likely you could use something like a JSON web token. I don't think I'm going to set that up right here. But you could create a authorization endpoint that returns a token if the username and password are correct. And then in subsequent requests, you look at the token to see if it's valid. Other ways to do it. But that's the basics of middlewares. Yeah, like a bearer token. You can create a JSON web token, put a bearer header on it. And what Mahidra was mentioning is instead of creating these separate files, you also can just do something like this. So when you say server.use, that works with a middleware as well. So I'll just show really quick how you would do this if you were doing it in a separate file. So let's do this. We're going to create an index.js. We're gonna pull in JSON server, which we installed. We create it. We tell it to listen to the JSON file. We get all the default middlewares, and then we use the router. And we're gonna listen on port. What did we choose? 4242. Cool. But I still have these totally separate files, right? So I have this error handler file, which exports a middleware, and I have this auth file, which exports a middleware. So all I need to do in here is just bring those in. So I'll say auth middleware equals require dot slash, did I put it in the right folder? I don't think I did. Let's put it in there. There we go. So I'm gonna bring in that auth file, and I'm gonna say the error handler middleware equals require error handler. And then we'll actually use the middleware. So I'm gonna first use server.use auth middleware. That's all we have to do. So in Express, when you say .use, what that is expecting is a middleware function. So I could define it in line. I could do rec res next here, and we could define our function that does all the stuff. But because we defined it in a separate file, we're just going to reference the function like that. And then similarly, we're going to use the error handler middleware. And I believe I think it should be okay if I just use it right here, because it will only ever get called if there is an error. So let's do that. And now, instead of running the command JSON server, we're just going to say run node index.js. So this should run the same server that's doing all the same things, but now we have more control over it. So if we just do npm start, JSON server is running. If we try to get posts, we get that. If we pass the correct password, we get back the actual response. If we don't pass any header at all, we should get back an error. There we go. So that's middlewares in a nutshell. Basically, they are a function that takes in the request. They have access to the outgoing response, and they have the ability to forward an error or go on to the next middleware. So hopefully that helps, Mahidra. And here's what I'll do really quick. I can just define this all in line like this. So we can include the auth middleware right here, and we can include the error handler middleware right here. And it works in exactly the same way. Just take a quick stretch. And then we don't have to require these in anymore. Good to go. So hopefully, Mahidra, that answers your question. I'll share this code really quick so you can take a look at it. Let's do this. .js. Yeah, I've been online for an hour and 9 minutes. So Mahidra is asking, can we use db.json in Express? Do I have to use another library with it for that? So this JSON server automatically works with a JSON file. Now, like I said, this is not a full-fledged database server. You would really never build a backend application that multiple users are using. For one, you could run into issues where they're trying to write the file at the same time. This doesn't scale because everything's just stored in a JSON file. This is good for like example projects, but you would really never use this as an actual database. But for simple APIs, for just like if you want to get a backend up and going really quick, this is totally fine. And similarly, like I mentioned, you really never want to like have a hard-coded password. You want a better way of storing user information. But technically, you could store users in here with hash passwords. You could create a custom middleware that gets rid of the password and outgoing response. But yeah, for examples, this is great. It's super easy to get up and going. And this is actually all you need. So as long as you do npm I json-server, which we did here, this code will work. So yeah, loading. But there's the sample code that we just wrote. Yeah. And that's a great point, programmer in progress. So like if you're a front-end dev and you don't want to have to spin up the back-end server, you could create just a JSON file that mimics their backend API. And as long as your backend API adheres to the same RESTful interface, it should work. So you can look at JSON server. It basically exposes RESTful endpoints for anything that's in here. You get RESTful endpoints for any property in that JSON file. And so if you have an API that behaves in the same way, it's really great for testing and not having to actually spin stuff up. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that was fun. Let's keep answering questions. Great question, Mahidra. Thanks for asking. And let me know if you have any other questions. Cool. All right. Next question. Hello, Sergio. Hey, no worries. Thanks for dropping by. Next question is from Cananello. Could you show how and why export/require are used in the backend, please? So I think, Cananello, you're watching right now. Are you curious about just things like require, or how, like before, I pulled in these files that are in a separate directory and or in a separate file and I'm using them here? Or are you more curious about the import-export syntax and using that in Node? Please clarify your question. But what I think you're asking is, you're asking for basically like a rundown of how modules work in Node.js. I think that's what you're asking. Please clarify. So if you're using Node version 13, there's an experimental flag. Well, actually, no. They removed it, but they'll show you an error. Or not an error, a warning that it is experimental. Node 13 import. You don't have to use Babel, no. So used to, you could pass in experimental modules, but now in Node version 13, you can just do it. I believe you have to name your files .esm. What you got there? Yeah, let's look at the docs. Okay, cool, Cananella, we can talk about that. And we'll just do like a basic introduction to modules to people that haven't used that before. So basically, how can I organize my backend using modules? And Cananello, are you using Node and Express? Because we can show an example with that. And thanks for the follow, Qgrin. What's up, Dragomir? Welcome. Cool. So yes, currently it's experimental, but if you have Node 13, you can just use it. And And in your package JSON, you have to say type module for it to work. Otherwise, you have to name the files .mjs. But then you can just do imports and exports in Node.js. But this is a separate thing. It's still experimental. And actually, you don't need a build tool. It'll just work in Node. But let's talk about modules. Modules. Node and Express. Cool. All right, we're going to do like a basic. Let's do this. We'll build like a basic Express API. We'll show everything in one file, and then we'll show how we can start to extract those things into separate files. Let's do this. We'll call this Node Express modules example. Okay, so you're a new backend developer. You've followed a few tutorials online, and they all just have a bunch of code in a single file. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into this directory, and we're going to initialize it as an npm repo. We're going to get a basic Express API working, and then we're going to make it better. And someone remind me, there is a stream that I would recommend you watch that I did, which goes through this, like refactoring the API. But I just want to show at a high level like how modules work. So we're in this folder. We're going to do an npm init. That creates our package JSON, which keeps track of all of our dependencies. So right now it's super basic, but we need some dependencies. We're going to install Express, and let's install Morgan, which is a logging library, which logs the incoming and outgoing requests. I think it's pretty much all we need. We could install cores if we're trying to hit it from a front end, but this is good enough for now. So you don't need body parser, that's built in, and we're not really going to be doing any schema validation, so we're good without Joy. But thank you, free debugs. Okay, so actually I'll install NodeMon though. So NodeMon is a tool for automatically refreshing the server if you change files. So we're going to install that as a dev dependency. Awesome. So we have NodeMon now, and so now we're gonna have a script. Let's call it dev. When we call npm run dev, that's gonna just do NodeMon on index.js, and then whenever we call start, that's just gonna say node index.js. Cool. So here's what we'll do. We'll create our index.js file. Super basic. We're going to create an Express app. So we'll bring in Express. Require Express. We need to create an application. So we'll invoke Express. We'll just do like a basic get route. So we'll say when a get request comes in on slash, we want to just respond with some JSON. We'll just say hello world. And then we want our server to listen. So we're going to say app.listen. We'll pass in a port. I'll store that in a variable. Process.m.port or 4242. We're going to listen on that port. And then when we're listening, we're just going to log to the console. Listening on http://localhost on that given port. Okay. We also installed Morgan. So Morgan is a nice little tool for logging incoming and outgoing requests. So we'll pull that in. That looks pretty cool. And then we actually want to use it. So Morgan, we were talking about middlewares earlier. Morgan is a middleware package. What it does is it looks at every incoming request and automatically logs to the console when those requests happen. So it's a type of middleware that you can install and use. So to use that middleware, we just say app.use. We can invoke it and then pass in the type that we want. I'm going to go with common. And we have a basic Express app. So if I do npm run dev, we should get a server listening on 4242. And if we go there, we see hello world. And if we look in the console, we can see that a request came in for a get request on slash came in, and it was successful. So the middleware is doing the logging there. Okay, so super basic Express API. let's talk about modules. So basically, and actually in terms of organizing backend code, here's where I would start first. In your backend, instead of just having JavaScript files at the root of the folder, I would create a new folder called src and put your code inside of there. So source or src, it usually it's like an abbreviation for source. And the reason that is good is because you can use like linting tools to automatically look at all files that are in that folder. So instead of having to point it at multiple files that are all at the root, now it's nice and organized and everything is in that folder. But because we moved it, we do need to change our main and we need to change our commands. So now when they run, they should be source index and source index. So we'll kill that, we'll start it, and our server still works. Cool. So first tip, use a folder. Next up, typically with an Express app, you can define sets of routes in a separate file. I love the linter when it's happy, yeah. So what you could do is pretty much any Express Express route handler or request handler, sorry, could be defined in a separate file. So let's do this really quick. Let's set up some error handlers. So by default, when we request this, if we go to something that's not found, we get this default error page, which isn't that great. But if you think back to earlier, we actually wrote that simple little error handler function. So let's use it. I'm just going to copy and paste it for now. And I'm going to say app.use. We'll pass in that. We'll pass in that error handler. And we have a new YouTube member, Sergio. Thank you so much. Sergio has been watching for a while. And you know what, Sergio? We might actually do some TypeScript on the stream pretty soon. I've been doing React and TypeScript at work. I hate it, but I'd love to talk about it and show people how to do it. But thank you so much, Sergio. And actually, I've been talking for an hour and 20 minutes. I think we should take a pause. And actually, let's just show this middleware should work now. So now if I go to something that's not found, well, what did I do wrong? App.use error rec res next. TypeScript is okay. Oh, we need a not found error handler too. Regardless. All right. Shout out to each and every one of my patrons and members, and thank you to Sergio for being the latest YouTube member. And also, shout out to, I think his name is Josh, but we had a new Patreon pledge in the avocado category, which is huge. So Coding Garden is brought to you by viewers like you, all these wonderful people. So first up, all the people that support me on YouTube, including Sergio, who just supported. And I appreciate each and every one of you. Yeah, there's his name. Very good. And if you watch my YouTube channel, I don't have any, and there's Josh, the latest avocado, much appreciated there as well. But if you watch my channel on YouTube, I don't have any advertisements enabled. I don't really try to sell you anything, so support through YouTube or Patreon is a great way to support me. There are also some perks. Ooh, stop that. If you're a YouTube member, and we can show this, and actually, Sergio, you should show off your new emotes. If you're a YouTube member, you can use these exclusive emotes, including the CJ face, like that. Yeah, so shout out to all my patrons and members, much appreciated. Did it not come through? Hello, world. Why aren't my messages coming through? Are they delayed? Yeah, I added Alka to my YouTube emotes, but they don't seem to be working. Why don't I see messages from me? Are there any other YouTube messages that happen? Can someone else say hello on YouTube? Because I think my YouTube chats are broke. I mean, these came through. Am I hiding messages from myself? I don't think I am. Hey, that's Twitch, Steven. Yeah, those came through. Weird. It's not showing my own messages. Thanks for the YouTube sub, Robin. Okay, well, if any members are in the chat, you should be able to use these custom emotes. There's the CJJS emote. There's also the black JavaScript sticker, and there's the Alka emote, the CJ Pixel emote, and the CJ emote, and the CJ Think emote. Can you all see my messages on YouTube? Maybe that's not what's coming through. Oh yeah, it's signed out. C.js, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's super weird. The messages didn't come through. Maybe this one will. Yeah, that one came through. And that one. Yeah, for some reason it doesn't like the Alka emote. Can you see the Alka emote? Yeah. Oh yeah, and Sergio, feel free to try and use one of the emotes because they're not working for me. I don't know. We at least got the CJ emote, but the other ones, regardless. But that's one of the perks, and also one of the perks is on the Q&A website. Members and patrons appear towards the top, so we can see that Cananello is a droplet, Pranjal is a droplet as well. There are a lot of other questions, a lot of anonymous questions as well. I'm only going to be live for like 7 minutes more. I think I'll try to do a Q&A tomorrow as well because there's a lot of questions that came in, so we can answer those. But let's finish up the answer to Cananello, who's basically asking, how do we organize our code? How do modules work? And good morning, Jamie. How's it going? That's possible, Mahidra. Okay, so we just added this error handler. Let's add a 404 handler. So we're learning about middlewares a lot today, but we're going to add a middleware that if something wasn't found, it creates a not found error. Okay, so apparently the Alka emote is coming through for Sergio. I actually haven't parsed these yet in my chat manager. I need to do that. Hello, Rockcode. Welcome. So let's create a middleware that is a not found middleware. So we'll get the rec, the res, and next. And so in terms of middlewares, this is how they work. They're top down. So because we put this not found middleware here in the real Polygon, with a $25 donation. Thank you so much. Let me see really quick. If you have a message, I'm going to read it. But emotes in the chat, the real Pygon. Let's see. Who says, I really appreciate how you share more professional practices that most other tutorials skip over. It's also great how easy you make it for people to understand. So thank you. You're very welcome, the real Pygon. Much appreciated. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for the donation. All right, that deserve a PogChamp. Okay. If there are any graphic designers working, it'd be cool to have like a CJ PogChamp. I mean, I guess I just need to take a picture of myself doing the PogChamp face. And a super chat from Jamie Davis who says, looking forward to 2020 coding with you. Thank you so much, Jamie. Let's see. Was there a... Okay, cool. That was the message. All right. We're going to do a not found middleware. I only got 5 minutes. So we'll say response.status is 404. And then we'll call next with a new error that says not found. So the way this middleware works is if none of the other middlewares have been satisfied, it's going to make its way here. And if it makes its way here, so it's important that this one is like second to last in where the middlewares are registered, because this basically says, well, we made it here and we didn't find it. So we're setting the status to 404. All right, see you later, Sergio. Thanks for becoming a member. Much appreciated. Yeah, and thanks again, Jamie, for the, what do you call it? For the super chat. Cool. So this middleware will set a 404. It sets the error and calls next with it, which is going to hit this. And so now, instead of seeing this error page, we should see a JSON response. Very cool. All right. So just in terms of modularizing your code or making your code cleaner, I guess, let's just talk about the basics of modules. So let's do this. I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it middlewares.js. And really, this is the main tip, or the main way of keeping your code lean and small and modular, is by putting functions in separate files, and you group like functions together. So this middlewares file, I'm going to take these two things which were defined here, and I'm going to define them in here. So let's do this. We're going to take this and we're going to put it in here in a variable. So let's say not found equals that function. Great. And then we're going to take this one, which is the error handler, and we're going to put it in a variable there. So in Node.js, you can define any number of functions or variables in a file, but if we want to make these functions available to another file or to the outside world, we have to export them. So in Node.js, you have this thing called module.exports, and really, it's just an object. So you could say module.exports.notfound equals not found. And then in another file, when we require this file in, we're going to get an object that has that value. And actually, I misspoke. Module.exports can be set to a function. It can be set to an object. It could even be set to a string. But by default, it is an object. So you can actually do this. My preferred way of doing it is saying module.exports equals an object. And then everything that I want to make available in another file, I put on here as a property. So I put not found. I put error handler. Yeah, you could set it to exactly. So you could set module.exports to really any value you want. But typically in Express, this is the most common way of doing it, is setting it to an object with multiple things. So yeah, I mean, and technically what I could have done is I could have said module.exports.errorhandler. Let's just show that here. Equals that, and module.exports.notfound equals that. That would have been the same thing as doing that. So that's also possible. Those are kind of like inline. However, I do prefer to put them in separate variables and then export them all at the bottom. The reason being is inside of here, you may want to call one of your other functions that you've registered inside of that file. Cool. So now that this file exports an object with those two functions on it, in index, we're going to use those instead. So we'll do that right here. So we'll say middlewares equals require middlewares. And here's the thing. When you see a require that begins with a dot, that means it's a relative path, meaning that we're pulling in a file. So because I did / Node.js says, all right, I'm going to look for a file now that is called middlewares. And when you say require, the thing you get back from this is going to be the thing that was exported in the other file. So because I say require the file called middlewares, this thing exports an object, so that the thing on the right-hand side, this object, is now inside of the variable middlewares in this file. And I could call this anything I want, but whatever gets returned from here is going to get stored in this variable. I think it makes sense to call it middlewares, but don't get confused that because it has the same name of the file, that's how it's working. It's because require actually gets the functions, or it gets the export from this, which is an object, and sets it to this variable. Yeah, and that's another good point, Steven. So what we could have done, actually, so let's just show this working. So now that I have middlewares, it has two properties on it, right? It's an object with not found and error handler. So now I can just do this. I can replace that function expression with a reference to the function from another file. So I can say middlewares.notfound. Great. And right here, I can replace that expression with the function defined in a separate file, middlewares.errorhandler. There we go. And it should work in exactly the same way, but the only thing I've done is I've taken those two functions, defined them in here, and now I can use them in here. The new import syntax requires a little bit of setting up. Yeah, and so one thing you'll see with imports and exports, which is different from require. So require and module.exports are known as common.js, and I believe, or maybe I think it's common.js. And then import and export, which you see a lot like with React, and which is supported by ES 2015, is that the AMD format? I don't know. They're different though. And another thing you might see people do actually is destructuring. So just know that this is going to put that object in this file, and then we have access to those two functions. However, because we know it exports an object, we could destructure it. So we could actually say not found. So we're going to pull off the not found property, and we could also say error handler. And now we've destructured it, and now instead of accessing it from an object, we just have two variables, not found and error handler. So that's another way to do it as well. But that's not really anything to do with modules. That's just destructuring added onto it. Okay, one thing I'll share really quick because it was mentioned is if you create a folder, so let's create a folder called Middlewares, and inside of that, we're going to rename this file to be index.js. And the reason you might do that is because, and you see that it actually did it automatically for me. If you require a folder, so now let's see what this means and what we're looking at. If we see we're doing /middlewares, but middlewares is a folder, Node.js will automatically look for a file in that folder called index.js and require that in instead. So this is a nice way of organizing things. The other thing you could do is now we could actually have separate files. We could have one called like notfound.js. We could take this not found and actually just export it directly from this. So we could say module.exports equals this function, like that. And then we could create another file, call it error handler. And we could just take this function, and in error handler, we could say module.exports equals that function. And we have a new member, Jonas Walden. Thank you so much, Jonas. Let's see what level you're at. Nice, droplet. And as I mentioned earlier, feel free to use all of the new emotes. Separate them by a space, because my chat manager is broken right now. But much appreciated. Okay, so now look at what we've done. We have this middlewares folder. It has a folder called it has a file called error handler, which exports a function. It has a file called not found, which exports a function. And so now in here we can actually do this. So we can say not found equals require not found, and error handler equals require error handler. And because this, remember, this is going to take whatever's exported from that file and put it in this variable. Because not found exports a function, now that function lives in this variable. And similarly, this function is stored in this variable, and now this file exports an object with those two functions on it. Now this is actually a pretty common pattern you see, especially like if you have a directory for all of your modules and a directory for all of your routes. You can put all those files in the folder, and then you create one file called index that it exports all of them automatically, so that in this file, in the main file, all we had to do was import middlewares, and then we have access to all of them. Now, this is just a convenience. If we really wanted to, we could import each individual function that was defined in here, right? We could have said const not found equals require middleware slash not found. So we could have required that function directly from that file if we really wanted to, and then we could use it in here. But now that we've kind of grouped them together as all the middlewares are being exported here, we can use them there. There's a lot more to modules, and yeah, thanks Majestic Eye. So Majestic Eye is pointing out a course from Brad Traversy on Node.js APIs, which is a user called this dot singing the We Will Refactor This Later song. But we will. I mean, We technically could. We could refactor this like crazy. Like, this could be put in a separate file. But I will point you to this video that I did on refactoring. If you just search, if you go to coding.garden/videos, you can search all my videos. But if you search for refactor, here we go. This is a very long stream. It's a 5-hour stream. However, we take a very basic API that we actually created on Coding Garden, so there's even more videos before that, but we take that, and first thing we do is we add a linter, and we make sure that all our linting is good. Then we add tests, and then once we have working tests, we refactor things to use middlewares and an MVC style, so that the code is much more like production ready. And I talk about it in the video, but it's important that at some point you add tests before doing that refactor, just so you can be confident in your refactor. So I would check out this video. The code for that video is linked as well, which shows like how we structured the API and stuff like that. Cool. Is there a standard file structure for REST APIs? No. And so in Node.js, like you can do pretty much anything you want. And the MVC style is fairly common. I've seen that a lot, but there's no like standardized way of doing it. Okay, thanks for your question, Cananello. I actually have to go now. I do realize a bunch of questions came in, but I'll try to do another like hour-and-a-half session tomorrow for answering questions. Thanks to all the new members. Thanks to the super chats and the donations. You all are very wonderful people, and I appreciate you greatly. Winston Logger is, just real quick, Winston Logger is cool. It's similar to Morgan, but it has a lot of other plugins. You can do like logging to a Slack channel and stuff like that if you wanted to, which I've done before, but yeah. Alrighty, everyone. And thanks, let me shout out all the follows that happened if I didn't. I believed I said thanks to these. Thanks for the follow, Edestes. Thanks for the follow, Adba. Thanks for the follow, Ledrolika. Thanks for the follow, Turnshoe. Thanks for the follow, Proweb. Thanks for the follow, Agent Key. Thanks for the follow, B-Buster. Thanks for the follow, Thiago Ramos. Thanks for the follow, Suiseki. Thanks for the follow, Qgrin. And thanks for the follow, Dark Whiskey. And thanks to everyone for asking questions. If you have a question in the meantime, feel free to add it on this website. The next time we do a Q&A session, I'll try to answer it. And I like to do things with code examples, as you saw today. Every now and then, they're not that way, but yeah. All right, let's do a... I'm not going into work today. No, I have errands to run. So if you're watching on YouTube, come on over to Twitch, and we are going to do a good old-fashioned raid. So if you're watching on YouTube, head over here. But a raid is where we take all the viewers of one channel and we go to another channel. And I see that CM Griffin is streaming. We've raided him a few times. We might raid him again. Let's see who else is streaming. Learning Apollo. See you later, everyone. Thanks for hanging out. Let's see if there's anybody on the Live Coders team. Slana, she's doing game development, Illuminated Space. Starting system architecture design. That sounds pretty fun. Doing that. They're playing a game. That's not live. All right. Oh, wait. No. Okay. I was going to say, did they go away? Yeah, let's raid Illuminated Space. And this dot has the raid message. So copy that raid message. We're going to do a raid. That's me. This message. So copy and paste this message. We're going to go over to Illuminated Space's channel. Everyone's going to be as nice as possible. You're going to spread the Coding Garden love. You're going to respect the streamer and everyone else in the chat. It's going to be a good time. So have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone. Thanks again to all the donations and the members. I could not do it without you. Much, much appreciated. So wherever you are in the world, have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or night. And until next time, here's this.